early impressions of The Acolyte are relentlessly positive. Here we have a Forbes article by Paul Tassi, and he starts off by saying this: Disney is finally taking another somewhat large risk with Star Wars at last. Not adapting straight up EU material or branching off other films and shows, but doing something wholly original. Now, that would be The Acolyte, which centers on a killer stalking and murdering Jedi. We've seen a trailer, but now a group of early viewers, we're going to talk about that group here in a second, have seen anywhere from 2 to 4 episodes of the show ahead of its June 4th debut. The takes, just on social media and not officially scored reviews yet, are endlessly positive. Gee, I wonder why that could be. Are there other explanations? We're going to see. That said, we are talking about many people who attended an actual premiere event for The Acolyte with cast and other Star Wars shows. So sure, that may lean a little more positive than the average crowd. That's an understatement. If you've been invited to a premiere, which I couldn't find, but I don't think they did this for the other shows because they're trying to market this one. They're trying to push this one even more because they know it might actually be failing. But if you want to know what they're saying, here's a collection from some of the comments, and here's some of the ones they've put in. They've pulled these from Twitter. So I guess Star Wars Holocron has seen the first 4, but not the others? Again, this is where I'm confused. How did some people see all 4 and not others? It's very strange. The Acolyte episodes 1 through 4 are superb, a captivating murder mystery that evokes detective tales of Twin Peaks and Matt Reeves, the Batman. Mature like Andor, while fully embracing and thematically connecting to the prequels. Seeing the High Republic in live action does not disappoint. Now, don't get me wrong. If all of these things are true, I would be excited. I would love a show again like Andor. I loved Andor. I thought the way that Andor handled Star Wars was fantastic. I know a lot of folks very much disagree, but I think what Andor did on film in the format that was given was really, really, really good. I really don't think The Acolyte is going to be that way. Everything up until this point being shared by Leslie Headland, being shared in the trailers, doesn't bring that level of confidence. It feels more like a DEI fill-up of everything that Disney wants to check all the boxes of. And if you saw recently George Lucas address some of these things, if you want me to talk about that, let me know down below. I'll give my thoughts on his Cannes Film Festival interview. The Acolyte 2-episode premiere was so much fun. Lee Zhang-Jie's performance was so good. Manny Jacinto was hilarious. I liked Amandla Sandberg as the lead. Despite borrowing a costume, I'm not a Star Wars fan, but you don't need to be one yourself to enjoy this series. So that's an interesting statement. On the face of it, I'm fine with that because you didn't need to be a Star Wars fan to enjoy Andor. Many people did enjoy it, even if it wasn't Star Wars. I think that was one of the criticisms. But here, if you're not a Star Wars fan, why are you being invited to this premiere? Why not invite a different creator or a different person who would give their thoughts? That makes no sense. That makes no sense. Eric Voss. The Acolyte presents something we rarely see in Star Wars, a good mystery. Not just who is the glup shitto, but a truly fugitive-style conspiracy thriller. How can you know that from just 2 episodes? I hope that's the case. I would love a good mystery, but everything else that's surrounding this and the fact that you don't even need to like Star Wars to enjoy this, this is not going to help bring Star Wars fans back to Star Wars. Unfortunately, I don't think The Acolyte will do that. It says, beholden to nothing except being Star Wars, The Acolyte soars. It's an interesting, fun, character-driven mystery with real stakes that you care about, bolstered by the fixings that make it Star Wars. Saw the first 2 episodes and loved them. So why only 2? Why didn't you get to see all 4? I'm confused. Real stakes? How are there real stakes? We know either everyone has to die or they're just completely disregarding the prequels that the Sith haven't been seen for 1,000 years. So I'm really not quite sure how the stakes are real in that case. We'll see. Sean O'Connell, really digging The Acolyte through 4 episodes. So Sean got to see 4. This is so confusing. Fresh storytelling in an unexplored era of Star Wars. But it's all about character. And Mandela Sandberg continues to impress as a former Padawan pulled into a murder mystery. Great fight choreography, cool new worlds, big win. This I would agree with. From what I've seen, the choreography has looked pretty good. But none of that will matter if the story is garbage. And if it isn't really Star Wars, if it's changing a bunch of things that are really Star Wars. And that's the concern, that it's more about all these things around the edges of Star Wars and not actually about the story. The Acolyte is the Force-sensitive version of Andor. The cast is stellar, the writing of each episode is jam-packed, practical sets and amazing costumes, as well as sound effects work make every location feel lived in, while having an emotional through line to keep it focused. Now, I will say, the practical sets and everything in Andor was fantastic, but it was about the storytelling. If you haven't seen my video about Andor, you should check that out. I'll link it down below. But even if this is half of Andor, it's a win. But I just don't see what's been said previously. Everyone's trying to tie this back to Andor and compare it to that because they don't want to compare it to Kenobi because how terrible that show was. He concludes the article by saying, I could go on as there are dozens of these, but you get the idea. Again, we don't know precisely what the stipulations were for early access. We're going to talk about that. And being allowed to post comments on social media. Yeah. Who's allowed and not allowed? But it's at the very least promising, even if it doesn't actually live up to being Jedi Andor, which it won't. It won't. It will not. Which I think would be exceedingly hard. But knowing that it is a solid entry, being its own thing from a whole new non-Skywalker area we have only seen in the book so far, that sounds really good. I'm looking forward to it even more. So you saw it even there in the article, the comments like who even is allowed to post. And this is some of my problem, that I really think the people who were brought into this are, I'm not going to call them Disney shills, but people they knew were going to already be relentlessly positive. Now, I want to be a positive Star Wars fan. I really do. That's why I'm going back to the original trilogy and even some of the prequel stuff, making content about those, because some of this newer stuff, this Disney stuff, is just not cutting it. And I hope and I pray that all of the things said here in this article are true, but I'm not going to believe it because someone says it. And I'm not going to just blindly like something because I'm told to like it. Everyone can have their own opinion. Everyone can have their own perspective. You can decide what you like, and I can decide what I like. The problem is, with the narrative surrounding Acolyte, with the way the trailers have been received, they needed these reviews to be relentlessly positive, if you know what I mean. Because if they hadn't been, then it would have torpedoed everything. Can you imagine if Kenobi, even though there were problems with that show, if Kenobi even received half of the attention that Acolyte is getting? What if Andor had received the marketing that Acolyte is getting? This has been a marketing firestorm by Disney trying to catch people to watch this show. Why? They're losing money on streaming. They're losing so much money that these things are not becoming profitable anymore. This is a big reason why The Mandalorian Season 4 was turned into a movie, because streaming is not profitable. However, we're also seeing that movies and the movie theater experience is not nearly as profitable as it was then. So at the end of the day, I think there were certain reasons why those folks were picked to speak about it, because they've been positive about all of the Star Wars things to this point. They even are pulling in people who aren't Star Wars fans. So I'm going to take all of their positive comments with a huge grain of salt, because honestly, I'm not that excited about Acolyte. I'm hopeful but I'm skeptical. And I don't know, what do you think? Are you passing on this entire show? Are you interested? Are you still going to watch even though you're like me, a little bit skeptical to find out what it is? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And if you haven't seen some of my previous videos, YouTube thinks you like this one right here. I'll catch you in the next one.